is there a certain style that you adopt in the way that you interview people for a radio package?
Well, I think when you're interviewing academics or people who may never have been on the media before, you have to be mindful that it can be quite intimidating, and that your job sometimes is just to literally relax people, to make them feel comfortable, at ease, because the more relaxed they are, the better an interview they'll generally give. Of course, it's completely different if you're talking to a politician or somebody who's skilled at using the media, and you obviously are not trying to relax them so much then. You're trying to ensure that the questions that you ask are going to bring the information out of the talent. And sometimes the talent doesn't want to release that information, and your job is to burrow in and try and get it out, no matter what. And sometimes that might mean asking a question in 6 different ways, but without boring the listeners in the process.
You mentioned that you might find yourself in a situation where you have to relax your talent. Do you have any tips for the students as to how they can go about doing that?
I often say to someone, particularly if it's an academic who may not have ever done an interview before, and I say, look, just treat it as a conversation. Treat it as a conversation between you and me. Yes, of course, we're going to be recording it, and I'll tell you when we start recording it, but don't think of it as a formal interview per se, because it's just a conversation between 2 people. And the more relaxed and you're able to be as the talent, the better an interview it will be in the end. I think it's terribly important when you're doing an interview for broadcast that you prepare yourself in the way you think the interview will go, but you remain open to the direction in which the talent might take the interview. And I'm not just talking about a politician who might hijack the interview and just say the same thing over and over again. I'm talking about someone who might say something that you hadn't anticipated. And you've got to be open to going with the flow, because if you are to maintain it as a conversation and perhaps even present it as a finished product, as a what we call a Q&A, a conversation, not as a package, but as a discussion between an interviewer and talent, I think it's really important that you listen really carefully to what the answers that you're getting, and be prepared to junk the questions that you pre-prepared and go with the flow of the interview itself.
Sometimes you don't get a lot of time to prepare questions. You just get thrown at a story at the last minute. So what do you say to yourself about the questions that you ask? Is there a way that you phrase your questions? Are you mindful of a style of asking questions?
Absolutely. And if you were working for a news program, you would be asking a question in a different way, because you would be essentially fishing for a grab, fishing for a bite, fishing for a 10-second or an 8-second or a 12-second bite. If you are doing current affairs journalism, you are always thinking, well, I might want to put 10-20 seconds of the talent, and then a question from me, and then another 10-20 seconds of the talent, again to get that flow of information going. And so the interview that you ask, you should be prepared for it all to go to air. And you might have to do a little bit of editing, and as you say, sometimes you have very little time to prepare. Sometimes your deadline is, the minute that you finish recording. So if you can treat every interview as potentially not needing to be edited, that's great, because you can rush it to air even better and even faster.
And do you have a policy that you try to ask a question in as few words as possible?
Yeah, if possible, yeah. I mean, you've got to convey the meaning of you've got to target something in asking the question, but you don't want the question to go on and on and on, because first of all, the talent has got, even more time to think of what they're going to say, and sometimes the best answers are actually what occur to people first. And so if you ask a question with 4 different clauses in it, you might lose the talent. They might go, well, I'll answer part 3 of the 4 parts first, and then I'll get back to that other one. And in the meantime, you've lost pace in the interview, and perhaps lost a few listeners along the way.
Simon Santow, thank you.
Pleasure, Liz.